From a single chest worth $36 million to billion-dollar underground labyrinths, this is the real-life value of every Minecraft structure. The Nether Fossil, a structure consisting of an average of 14 blocks, all of which are bone blocks, valued at around $200 each, would give a structure value of $2,800. Now, for being in one of the most deadly biomes in the entire game, and the only structure exclusive to that biome, this is kinda lame to be honest. Witch huts, because they have, well, nothing, are nearly worthless, made up of $4,400 of wood materials and containing a $7,000 steel cauldron. And it's just like, I do not want to hear anything about how you can make it a witch farm and make it infinitely valuable. Alright, that's just stupid. Ocean ruins, famous for their underwater ancient aesthetic tourist appeal and for being full of the most annoying mobs to ever exist. Each ruin has around one chest containing $280 million of golden nuggets, emeralds, and golden apples. Hold on, now you're probably confused. Well, let me do a quick little segment I like to call conversion of fake Minecraft numbers to real life values. So let's say ChatGPT says 1 cubic meter of gold is $1.8 billion. Then 1 ingot would have to be worth $200 million, so therefore a golden apple would be worth $1.6 billion, while something like an armor trim would be worth $148 billion, or the same as 7 diamonds. Worth fighting drowns for? Maybe. The igloo is built with less than $50,000 in building materials, but the chest generating the basement of half of all igloos always contains a golden apple worth $1.6 billion. So dividing this by 2 and adding 50,000, we get $800 million each. Also, who is sleeping in this bed up here? Like, you'll straight up have people just walking in here trying to diddle you in the middle of REM sleep. Getting a tad bit more expensive, or rather $5 billion more expensive, we have the ruined portal. Ruined portals have an average of 2.15 blocks of gold per portal, worth roughly $4 billion. We can then add the chest loot total of $2.36 billion from gold-related items to get a total $6.36 billion per portal. Villages get a bit more tricky. Although big and small villages have relatively similar values, our real major difference comes in when a weaponsmith house generates. Without a weaponsmith, the average village will contain around 11 houses. When looted, these houses can give around $2.8 billion worth of emeralds. And yeah, emeralds are really it. But if a blacksmith generates and spawns diamonds inside the chest, the village is suddenly worth $7.4 billion, or nearly $5 billion more just from a few diamonds. And yeah, since I know you were all just dying to know, abandoned villages have the exact same loot as normal villages, but they're just suckier because, well, they're abandoned. And there's a bunch of dudes trying to touch you in every house. Ocean monuments are also a bit bemusing, as some would say. Prismarine could be anything from a stone-like block to a priceless crystal block. Finding the middle ground between these two as a high-end underwater glowing construction material, a prismarine block is probably worth around $80,000. A cubic meter of sea sponge, or rather a block of wet sponge, is likely worth around $100,000, and gold is, well, gold. 13,000 prismarine per monument gives $646 million, 147 sponges will give $14.7 million, and the 8 gold blocks in each monument will give a total of $14.8 billion, making the structure worth $15.4 billion. Moving on to mine shafts. Their average of 5 minecart chests can spawn around $2 billion of gold, $12 billion of diamond, and some other irrelevant items for a total value of $16 billion. And now we have a structure that's literally 1 block large. Buried treasure. The average buried treasure can contain $9 billion of gold, $89,000 of TNT, $2.8 billion in emeralds, and $23 billion in diamonds. But every buried treasure also contains a heart of the sea, which is, well, as I'm very sorry to report, not real. But ChatGPT thinks it could be worth $2 billion, so we'll go with that only because of how common they can be. Nether fortresses can contain either 0 chests or like 20, it's actually so random. So going with an estimate of 3 chests per structure, I can semi-not confidently say that a single nether fortress is worth 63 billion schmackaroonies. And I definitely don't want to hear anything about how mythical brewing items are actually worth $163 trillion each. Pillager outposts have, well, armor trims, and $28,000 worth of blocks, making them worth roughly $65 billion each. Shipwrecks contain an average of 2 to 3 chests, with those being an equal distribution of supply chests, treasure chests, and map chests. Supply chests can contain armor trims, making everything else essentially not matter, and the chest worth an average of $43 billion. Treasure chests contain $6.6 billion of diamonds, gold, and emerald, and finally map chests contain, well, also armor trims, at the same chance of supply chests. Averaged out, a shipwreck is probably worth around $71 billion. Desert temples are known for having some insane loot that's sometimes easy to get. Their 4 chests can contain around $1.7 billion of golden apples, $1.5 billion in enchanted golden apples, $9.5 billion in straight diamonds, and $148 billion in armor trims. We can then add the $450,000 worth of TNT and $900,000 worth of sandstone to get $160 billion total. Now for the jungle temple, or pyramid? I'm not sure. Actually, the desert temple might also be a pyramid, but the desert one actually looks like a pyramid. What is this? This isn't a pyramid. Like, is Mojang smoking something? Can I have some? Anyways, it contains around $950,000 in redstone components, $69,000 in cobblestone, and $182 billion in chest loot from gold ingots, diamonds, and wild armor trims. End cities are probably the most sought after structure in the game for their incredibly stupid elytra, which I valued at the same price as a Ryzen 915 ISV. Watch the video at the end screen for some context on that. So, generating once every 2 cities, each city has $112,000 worth of elytra and $185 billion in chest loot. Strongholds, despite having a few questionably expensive blocks, are worth around $567 billion each. This amount mostly comes from the value of armor trims, which literally have a guaranteed spawn in every library chest, which makes each chest, kinda expensive. Now, there is a good argument that because the stronghold gives access to the entire end dimension, it should also have the value of the entire end included in its calculation. But I'm only talking about structures here. Like, what, do you want the ruined portal to be worth a couple sextillion dollars too? And also, does somebody want to tell me how the nuts a cubic meter of stone turns into this tiny annoying mob in a split second? Yeah, I didn't think so. Anyways, ancient cities are massive. PTSD? Yeah, me too, man. But they literally are, consisting of up to $3.8 million in redstone components, $3.6 million in deep slate blocks, and $1.5 billion in skulk sensors. And now you might be thinking, skulk sensors aren't worth anything because they're not real, or something like that. But ChatGPT says otherwise, so ha! Anyways, the chest loot is where it gets really crazy. $750 million in amethyst shards, another $37 billion in skulk sensors, $96 billion in diamond hose, $337 billion in diamond leggings, $29 billion in enchanted golden apples, and $122 billion in armor trims, for a total structure value of $622 billion. But that's not even enough to beat this 150,000 block large structure, aka the Woodland Mansion. The average Woodland Mansion has around 8,051 logs worth of dark oak materials worth roughly 850,000 and 5,000 cobblestone related materials worth around 300,000. But that will essentially become pennies compared to the chest value. I mean, as usual, what did we really expect at this point? Woodland Mansion chests, which can contain anything from diamond gear and golden apples to, you guessed it, more armor trims, are worth around $86 billion per chest, or if there are 7-ish chests, $604 billion total, which is kinda a lot. But you know what's worth even more? This. Well, not really, to be honest, but if either of these 2 rooms containing diamond blocks spawn, it can add an additional $166 billion to the total, making the total either $604 billion or $770 billion, which means it's either a tiny bit less expensive than the ancient city or way more. So after analyzing 10 woodland mansions, I found only an average of 33% contain a single diamond block, meaning the official final value is $653 billion, putting it right above the ancient city. Okay, trail ruins? Has anyone ever actually dug out one of these? Anyways, there's likely around 90 suspicious gravel per ruin, with approximately 17 of those being rare suspicious gravel, meaning they can contain any of 4 different armor trims at approximately an 8.3% chance each. Basically, it ends up being a big number. I don't even know why this is here, but somehow it's very valuable. Moving on to something that makes a bit more sense, the trial chambers. Now here is where actual blocks sort of, not really, start to matter. Each trial chamber can generate around 8,600 copper blocks per structure. Considering each of these cubic meters of copper could be worth up to $80,000, there's already $688 million worth of copper, not even counting the chests, or vaults, or ominous vaults, or decorated pots. Speaking of those, ominous vaults can generate around $67 billion of loot per vault, times an average of 6 vaults per chamber gives $404 billion. Normal vaults can give around $16 billion worth of loot per vault, of course armor trim's hard carry again, for a total of $267 billion. Chests can give, well, actually most of these chests are buns, but this chest under this staircase will always contain an iron block, a cake, and 1 diamond. For some reason. Anyways, it's worth 18 billion, and there's only one, so yeah, 18 billion. Lastly, decorated pots can contain around 1.3 billion in loot, times 53 pots gives $71 billion of loot. So our total for a single trial chamber is $760 billion, beating out the trail ruins by more than 30 billion. And so, we reached the last structure, and by far the most valuable structure in the entire game, Bastion Remnants. Now, if you thought everything else I said was actually complicated, then this is like impossibly difficult to calculate. Starting with some basic values though, in my video where I calculated the value of an entire Minecraft world, I said a piece of ancient debris could be worth 62 times the price of diamond, or 1.2 trillion per ancient debris. This can appear in Bastion chests in either its raw form, smelted form, or as netherite ingots. So by averaging all 4 Bastion variants, 3 of which can contain custom chests, into this spread, we can calculate the value of a Bastion. Normal chests consists of roughly $90 billion worth of gold, ancient debris, and armor trims. Bridge Bastion chests consist of around $33 billion worth of gold items and upgrade templates. Stable Bastion chests are worth around $385 billion, mostly from ancient debris related items. And finally, Treasure Bastion chests are worth an insane 3.2 trillion each. Then adding the estimated structure building block value of $560 billion, a single Bastion is worth $4.4 trillion, making it the most expensive structure in Minecraft. Anyways, go check out this video too, where I calculate the value of the entire multiverse of Minecraft worlds. It's kinda interesting, I guess.